to Navy Diver Conversations, a video series where we connect the veteran community. Really stoked to have one of my personal mates of almost 20 years here today, Ryan Kelly. How you going, Ryan?
Well, thanks, mate. Good to see you, mate.
Good to see you as always, mate. Because Ryan was actually one of the first models that modelled for the Navy Diver brand, back with Paul De Gelder, shark attack survivor, and another model of ours, Johannes, and we kicked the brand off in 2010, but we were mates many years before that. Yeah. So yeah, so not a lot of people know that Ryan was our first Navy Diver model. So pretty stoked to have you here today, mate.
Thanks.
Tell us what were your fondest memories of Navy Diver?
I think it was just, we were there in the embryonic phase of those discussions when you're like, I've got this idea. I remember you come into my apartment in McMahon's Point, at the end of the hill there, and you had some drawings. And yeah, I think you actually had a few bits of fabric that had come through.
Oh,
yeah, there was one or two sort of thing.
Swatch tests.
That's right. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, the original nautical striped, and the button concept I thought was cool. It was different, and I mean the whole idea behind it being, you know, following DG's incident with the shark and whatnot. I thought it was just really good, a really good thing from the outset, and something I was stoked to be a part of. That you'd asked me to potentially be a part of that, and I still remember having those chats with Paul. So, what do you reckon? You're going to do it? And I'll do it if you do it, and I'll do it if you do it. So, and then it all went ahead. So. And look at it now. The success is huge. You've gone global.
Oh no, it's sort of like a child that never really left me. To be honest, like, you still here? Oh, do I still have to feed you? Oh, no. It's been a 13-year journey, but yeah, mate. Embryonic phase was well put, because I think getting to know you guys, and you being one of the reasons why sort of Navy Diver came into fruition. Because we always wanted to create a legacy for the boys, and particularly you guys who were part of an elite diving squad in the Australian Navy. We thought, how do we encapsulate this, the boys, their legacy, what they're about? And that left a huge impression, you know, on me as a business owner. But yeah, mate, we're certainly going back in time with those memories. Yeah. And back in, that's right, North Sydney, where you were, you know, sort of doing your thing, and you were at the top of your game.
Injury free. Mostly.
Oh, look, you know, that's life, isn't it? Life throws a few turns and twists, but yeah, so look, we're certainly pumped to share your story today, mate. Yeah. Let's take it back. You know, tell us a little bit about, you know, your upbringing, teenage memories. What was life like as young Curl? Yeah,
it was good. I'm pretty fortunate, I think. I've got amazing parents. I've got a really strong family, and I was born in Wollongong. We moved to Port Macquarie when I was about 9, I think it was, year 4. And that was when, like, my love for the ocean and that really started to thrive. I'd always been a swimmer and involved in the surf. Dad's been a surfer his whole life, still is. And so the Port Macquarie lifestyle just suited us all to a T. Went to a great primary school where all of our kids now go, which I think is just fantastic. Then went to Port Macquarie High School here in town. Pretty competitive through school years. We played all sports, and again, fortunate in that I was lucky enough to be in one of those families that I was supported to do those sorts of things. So I don't think there was any one afternoon of the week where we weren't going off to training or practice for something, or a match for something on a Saturday morning, and then surf club on a Sunday. So busy, very physically active. It was a great way to grow up. And then after year 11, I went to Japan for a year on an exchange, a scholarship with the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. Lived with a Japanese family and got some language under my belt, and went to a Japanese school. I was the first exchange student ever at this school, so it was pretty cool. It was hard work at times, but it sort of set me up for some really good opportunities later on in life, particularly with joining the military, and that's sort of what planted those first seeds about what I might like to look at when I did come back and finish my HSC. Spent some time with some US Navy personnel over there and some SEALs who had some awesome stories about training and what they did for work. So it sort of pricked my ears up a bit and started looking into clearance diving. So I joined the Navy with the intent, with the sole intent really, to want to become a mine warfare and clearance diving specialist. Joined as an officer and spent 22 and a half years in the end. I've only just been medically separated in August of this year.
I remember those memories being told to me by your mum, Kerry, and bless her heart, I spent some time with your parents while you were still in Japan. But hearing that story of, you know, being a young high school student on exchange, and your mum was very nervous. She's like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing as a mum, letting my boy go abroad, but she knew in her heart of hearts that it was the right thing to do, and you know, she's proclaimed to her how proud she is that she allowed you to do that. And obviously us spending time in Japan, mate. So to tell the audience, we were catching up as mates in 2016. I ended up coming over in August 16, and Curl was on an international work assignment. Tell us a little bit about that work assignment. We'll go back to it, but
yeah. So the purpose of that was I was doing essentially a master's with the JMSDF, the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force, in their Command and Staff College in Tokyo. And at the time when the decision was made, it was all, there was a lot of attention around the potential submarine deal with the Solyu class with Japan. And so originally the plan was to complete that course and then move into a procurement cell of sorts and sort of bounce around between Japan and Australia. And it sounded really, really great. I was only about 3 months into the trip in Japan with the change of government, and it all got dropped on its head. So things changed as they do, dramatically, drastically with defence. And so that plan changed, but we still stayed there for about 14 months, I think it was, in the end. Completed the course, you and I spent some time there together. We had quite a lot of family come and visit us, and friends as well, to come and really just enjoy Japan with us. We got out of Tokyo when we could. The work schedule for me was pretty intense, and it's classic Japanese work culture and ethic. But we still had some really memorable times. Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Oh, I mean, Curl had the keys to the city, essentially. I mean, rocking up in Tokyo, my memories of rocking up was you had a penthouse in the town of...
We live in a part of the city called Akasaka Mitsuke, which is just above the Imperial Palace.
That's right, near the Imperial Palace, right near the Imperial Gardens. And I remember rocking up to the reception of this very elaborate sort of building, and there was, I mean, a clearance process, just even checking in as a friend. I mean, the Japanese squad was on to me, mate. They're like, who are you? What are you doing here? Who's Ryan Kelly? And I was like, okay, am I even going to have access to it? And then after half an hour of sorting the background checks, I got invited to pop on up to the apartment. But yeah, that was a cool experience. I think seeing you in your element, and you know fluent Japanese, and experiencing the culture, I think, in Japan with you was really memorable. Yeah. We had a few activities and did some really cool things, but yeah, mate, I'm so stoked, you know, to share that chapter. Yeah. And I guess, look, you know, tying that in with the catalyst of, you know, what was the inspiration that led you to joining the military?
Yeah, so initially it was those chats with those American people when I was living in Japan, when I'd hang out at the base at Yokosuka on a weekend just to speak some English, really, go bowling and do some things with people who I could talk to quite comfortably. That certainly planted the seed of inspiration. And then, I mean, the selection process to go into the ADF as an officer, it was almost a year long. It was quite an extensive selection process. So it was really that whole year 12 year whilst I was finishing the high school certificate, to then get confirmation of entry to then start on the 24th of January in 2001. So I finished the HSC, didn't have much of a break, and then bang, it was straight in. I remember at the time having, you know, a lot of friends at school, like, hey, join the Navy, that's different, like, how's it going to be? Like, what are you going to do if there's a war or anything? And then everyone sort of like brushed it off, like, there'll be nothing, hasn't been anything since Gulf War. It's been so many years. And then, yeah, sure enough, not too long later, I was on my first dive course at the time, actually, at the diving school at Penguin. And we'd come in from night diving on one of our last weeks before we got the tick in the box. And one of the guys turned the telly on, oh, what movie is this? But it was the news bulletin of 9/11 unfolding.
Wow.
So we finished our course, returned to units, and I was one of the first 2 ships to go in response up there in HMAS Kinimbla at the time. And another really good friend of mine was in HMAS Sydney in company with us, and so yeah, that was certainly deep end go sort of thing for us as kids. Essentially, I was 19, and yeah, big experience before then going to the Defence Force Academy the year after.
And it wasn't a Hollywood film, was it?
No, no, it certainly wasn't. But it's strange. I think everyone who was around in that time that knows where they were and what they were doing when they saw that news item. So yeah, that was us, and it was yeah, pretty confronting stuff.
Yeah, I bet. And they would have been some of your first memories of joining the military.
Indeed,
like you were
it
saying.
shaped that whole first year. It shaped the career, really.
Yeah,
and then led to a whole heap more involvement with clearance divers embarked on board, to whom I'm still very good friends with some of those guys. They took me under their wing. Like, they gave me insight into what I thought I was rogering up to, and then, you know, and more. So grateful for those experiences as just a very, very junior person within that world. But certainly shaped my career and the desires for where I wanted to go.
And let's break it down. I mean, what does clearance diving mean for the broader audience? Because we talk about it because I've known you for almost 20 years, and we spin words off like, oh, clearance diver, and I did diving in the military. Break it down. What did that actually entail?
Yeah, there's been a few subtle changes with the roles of the clearance diver over the years. I mean, initially the branch was born in 1951. It had all come out of the Second World War and what people were doing, particularly over in the UK, with how we were dealing with unexploded ordnance and mines in that maritime environment, and some of the things that these guys were doing to get on top of how to make an item safe. Extraordinary, some amazing stories out of how we really started this capability. And so it's kind of evolved over the years and sort of adapted to different threats as the contemporary environment changes, obviously, and the environment we're in now is very different to where we were 25 years ago. And so the capability these days focuses mainly on expeditionary reconnaissance and clearance. So it's sort of swimming in onto a beach or a target area and making it safe for an amphibious landing, for example. We also do mine countermeasures, so we're still dealing with underwater ordnance, mines, torpedoes, anything that can function in that environment. That's our bag to deal with in an EOD capacity, or an explosive ordnance disposal capacity. Underwater damage repair, or UDR, used to be called UBDR, now it's just UDR. And that's ship's husbandry, underwater patch repair. We can do hull cleans, all that sort of stuff. So to keep the fleet afloat and functioning. We've also got a specialised branch and smaller unit of the clearance divers who tap into the tactical assault group with the commandos, and their primary role is MCT, or maritime counter-terrorism. That's it in a nutshell.
That's a great nutshell. And look, you know, when you're going through the motions of the clearance diving world, you know, we very well hear that when Army vets go through grunts. Take us back to, you know, what those superiors were like. Were they breathing down your neck? What was it like as a young girl, you know, being surrounded with some of the best? Because being a clearance diver is quite testing, mentally and physically. We very well know that the guys in our group, Paul De Gelder, shark attack survivor, we very well know the story of Paul and the underwater bomb disposal testing he was doing at the time.
Yeah, I think it was a swimmer sonar detection system that they were trialling. Yeah, like an attack swimmer profiling, and they were simulating what it might look like at different levels in the water column, and then when Paul was on the surface, that's when the incident occurred.
That's when the incident happened. But I think looking at some of the guys that we very well know, but taking you back to, yeah, what were your superiors putting you through? What did it feel like? Was it a quite confronting, scary, nerve-wracking experience?
Absolutely, yeah, it was. But I don't know what it was. If it's just, you know, every little kid grows up playing with G.I. Joes, or we did in the 80s and the 90s, right? And so I felt as though it was something that I'd always wanted to do, or wanted to at least try. I felt as though my heart was in it. So even with those really tough times, I'd just sort of bite my lip and endure it. But absolutely, like some of the most intense, long nights with, you know, PT, physical training, sort of used as a training tool and a punishment to a degree at times, and those sorts of things. But they forge strong memories. They also forge strong bonds amongst the people that you're going through hell with. You know, one of the really good memories that sort of has stayed with me, and we're not allowed to do this anymore, but it was back in 01. We had one of our last days of the course that we were doing with the diving school. We were in a stebber, so a dive boat off Manly Beach, probably about 400 or so metres off the sand, and we were told that we were going there for like an end of course barbecue and some touch footy on the beach, which we thought was pretty specky. Wasn't the case. They went flat chat in the vessel, opened the back gate and told us all to jump in the water. So we're in the water, boat circled around us, threw our shoes at us, and a polystyrofoam coffee cup with a mobile phone number written on it. They said, if you get into strife, call that number, but meet us at the fish markets at 12 o'clock, go. And that might have been about...
How many of you were in the team at that point during this?
Maybe no more than 12 or so at that point, I think, yeah. So anyway, we had to quickly think how we were going to do this, and I remember swimming ashore and sort of through the surface in the lineup, we were like, what the... Got onto the beach, and we went straight up to the police station in Manly. We were like, first point of call, like, let's try and just get some help. And we went into the police station, sopping wet, shoes on, in Speedos, and fins under our arm. And the police officer there was just like, no, your instructor was running us, we're not allowed to help you, crack on, like, this is your thing to solve. So we then ran from there down to the ferry terminal. Can we get on the ferry? We obviously don't have any cash, and no. So we ended up having to just jump the barrier to jump onto the ferry, which today you'd get arrested for. And then we gathered up the front of the ferry from all the way Manly into Circular Quay. And it was approaching sort of lunchtime, right? And you know what the CBD of Sydney's like at that time of day.
Oh, it's chaos.
There are suits everywhere. People were heading off on their lunch break, and here are 12 essentially naked men running the length of George Street with fins under their arm to get to the fish markets. So this was like, it was an initiation test. And it was
not a bad sight.
It was fun, but certainly, I mean, all these years later, I still tell that story. Like, how funny was it? Like, did you have any funny moments in training where it was just like, oh, this is tough, but you kind of liked it? And that was one of those ones where we're like, far out, is this really what we're signing up for? And so we got to the fish markets on time. We were told then, yep, you're all successful, like tick in the box sort of thing. So go and get yourselves a few cartons of beer, go and get some fish and chips. And we went to Anchor just off Taronga, and then had our end of course do on the boat. So that's a good memory of the training, I think. Leave it at that.
That is quite the memory. I don't even think we've discussed that one before, but that paints the picture that there were, you know, when you were going through training, they really did create decoy situations of, hey, we're going out for a barbecue on us, and then all of a sudden you're thrown in the realm of, okay, fight or flight, sink or swim. Yeah. This is your task.
Yeah. Think outside the box, stay connected as a small team, and achieve the end state.
And how did you ultimately stay calm under pressure?
God, I don't know. I think when we were young and single, it was different. The mentality certainly changed for me over the years. I think once my eldest was born, that was a bit of a pivotal point in I found myself sort of taking a step back, going, oh, maybe things do need to change at some point. And I think at that period of time, this was about 2012 when Kai was born, I was involved in developing a new capability in rapid EOD or rapid IED, so dealing with IEDs in quick pace mode to support the momentum of an assault happening within a maritime counterterrorism environment. So it was super exciting, really great thing to be developing. I had the support of a really good guy who was working with the SBS in the UK, and he'd come out and join the Royal Australian Navy. Daz, you'd be listening at some point, top guy, spending some time with him in a couple of weeks actually. But I mean, that role was great. You know, we did exercises with the SEALs again off the coast of Queensland, with the guys out at Holsworthy. Had a trip to the UK where we spent time with the British SBS and SAS on some incredible training facilities at sea and ashore. But I certainly had moments through that where I was then thinking, we're parachuting, we're jumping out of helicopters, we're climbing ships in the middle of the night, and I've got a newborn at home. And so that was certainly, yeah, that would have been that fulcrum, like that's when it tipped, and I thought, okay. It wasn't long after though, I was selected for command to go and drive an Armidale class patrol boat out of Darwin, and so I actually left that role a little bit earlier than what I had anticipated, and went north, and then everything changed again. So.
And tell us, I mean, you're obviously saying that you work with some incredible individuals. You know, you're shedding a lot of blood, sweat, tears in these on course and in your job assignments. What were some of the characters like that you were working with? You know, what were some of the other CDs like? Who set and who left an impression on you, or who ultimately took you under their wing, mentored you, you know, told you not to take it, you know, too seriously?
There's so many to mention by name, but no, it's such a small community. We all know everyone. Everyone knows everyone. It's like a little TV sitcom, actually.
I created a brand out of you.
It's great. It's really good.
It is a very small knit community.
But we're really lucky, you know. Like the people in the community are on the whole just sensational. Like we've just had a fundraising dinner last Thursday night for the Navy Clearance Diver Trust, who does exceptional work for our community and their family in times of need. And getting together with people that I've known for over 20 years in a space like that, it was just amazing. And I think we all said at the end of the night, we need more of this. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with having that need and desire for like face-to-face communication, and not just a telephone call, not just a text message. It's valuable.
100%.
It felt like a mini Anzac Day to a degree, like in terms of the reunion, and it was really nice.
And that's a bit like the Navy Diver Clearance Trust. They do give back to, you know, the community, but also you guys as clearance divers. Tell us a little bit about how they do give back.
They are doing, gosh, amazing work. If there's a clearance diver in need, either currently serving or ex-serving, there is a process of application that goes through to the Board of Trustees. It's all assessed and valued, and if the CD Trust can help, then thankfully they lean forward and say, yeah, we can help you here. I think at the moment that there's a...
and help in what capacity? We're talking mental
health? Financially.
Financial?
Yeah, mostly. And kind of plugging a gap between what can and can't be provided in terms of ADF Garrison Health and ADF and or DVA. So where there are gaps, and there are gaps, it's not a perfect solution at the moment, but there's certainly a lot of work happening there to try and rectify it. NCDT are stepping in to plug those holes, which is fantastic. Yeah, it's a really good cause. So if anyone out there wants to make a donation to something worthy, can't recommend it enough, ncdt.org. Yeah.
Great. So yeah, if you're in need or you want to donate generously, what was that website again?
ncdt.org.
ncdt.org, and that's the Navy Diving Clearance
Clearance Diver Trust.
Wonderful. Yeah, they're doing great things. Yeah. So shout out to them. Look, you know, we talk about that sense of brotherhood and connection, and a favourite author of mine that I love reading about, I love reading his work, is Sebastian Junger. And Sebastian delves into the psychology of, you know, soldiers and the tight bond that is formed with combat or working in a team. And he goes on to say that the definition of self-sacrifice is ever more prevalent in the tight bond between comrades and soldiers fighting war. He calls the core experience of combat the brotherhood. What thoughts would you like to share around that, and how does the construct of brotherhood, when taken away from a former soldier, play into their identity or purpose when they leave the military?
Solid question. Yeah, I think, well, firstly, the way we are structured now, like it's not only a brother, but it's a sisterhood. we are both. You know, I took great pride in my time when I was one of my last jobs in Sydney, actually, before things changed going medically, which we'll delve into shortly. I was the officer in charge at the diving school, and during that tenure we graduated our first 3 female clearance divers in history, which was it's just such a huge moment, and they did so well, and really great people. In fact, the young officer is in the process of moving out to the tactical assault group right now, so sort of achieving another first and just doing such good things for us, our community, and as a capability. So the Brotherhood and the Sisterhood, it's enormous, and it's hard. I think it's actually hard for us to describe to someone, to a civilian, say, and that's broad brush stuff. I think being in the military, and particularly in a role like being a clearance diver, you go through some significantly challenging times, not only your training, but through the course of your career, be it peacetime, wartime, operationally, or just on an exercise. There's a whole heap of stuff that happens. We are doing an inherently dangerous activity, and diving is just our mode of transport. That just gets us to do the job. I think leaving that, and I speak personally here, it is extremely challenging, and it needs to be acknowledged that you can't just have it all on one day to then step away and the next day have it stripped from you and expect that individual to just keep moving forward without some sort of assistance. I think one of the biggest challenges for me of late has been dealing with the loss of identity. I think for too long, for over 2 decades, you know, I was defined by Navy officer, clearance diver, mine warfare clearance diving officer, was all of these things. And then come the 10th of August this year, I was just Ryan Kelly again. And so with a lot of psychological assistance and support, you know, we go through these periods where I'm reassured and in quick time that I'm defined by far more than just clearance diver and Navy and this and that, and, you know, father and partner and son, that all comes into it too. And so but it's been hard. That's been a really hard shift for me mentally.
Yeah, I bet.
And yeah, I've got no doubt that I'll still have some challenges with that at times. You know, that whilst last Thursday night was an incredible event, you know, you hear the stories of those who are still actively involved and what they're doing and where they're heading and what the focus is now and what's next. And it's hard to not feel as though you're outside the circle. You're not part of that anymore. And that's tough. That's tough for anyone. And I'm sure that we see that everywhere. We would see that with first responders, police officers. We see it with doctors. I don't think it's defined by just our profession and not just our specialisation. But when you devote so much of your life so passionately to a cause like that, to then just have it cut is it's huge. It's momentous. It's a life-changing moment. I think for me personally as well, the timing of the Invictus Games was perfect. It was only a matter of weeks after my separation date that we were getting on that plane to Germany. So I'm so grateful for that opportunity, and it was really good for me.
I bet, and we will talk about that in a moment. But you know, doing these podcasts and understanding, and thanks for sharing, because I can only imagine the magnitude of losing your sense of tribe identity and purpose and routine after 22 years, and then trying to find yourself as Ryan Kelly. People underestimate that there's work, there's challenges that's required into
enormously
creating a separation or a world beyond, you know, what you've ever known. And shout out to a guy that I did a podcast with, Adrian Sutter from Swissate. They're a mental health charity group that aid in veteran suicide and prevention. And Adrian's developed sophisticated AI and technology that aids with veterans who've lost their sense of identity and purpose. And really delving into the psychology and the fundamentals of what that means. It was powerful. It was such a powerful chat. And to any of the audience or any military veterans who've lost their sense of tribe, identity and purpose, if you're feeling vulnerable or if you need help, reach out to the team at swissate.org. They're doing some incredible work to bridge that gap of trying to find veterans a new identity and a new piece within the next chapter. But yeah, I think, like you were saying, Invictus Games was certainly a healing moment. Before we talk about that, I just want to go back into military life, taking you back into, you know, the thick of the job. And I think when you were saying that you had your first son, Kai, and the reality of what you were doing was sinking in a little bit more, it was sinking in deeper. Did you witness or were you involved in any near-death experiences, and what were the main factors that kept you alive?
Yeah, I mean, the first one, I had a really bizarre incident whilst diving under training. Came out of a dive profile. We were diving LAR-5, 100% oxygen.
When was this? What year?
This would have been, gosh, February 2008. This would have been, and so came out of the dive profile feeling okay, but then sat down and bit into a sandwich over lunch and just started bleeding profusely, like nose, eyes, ears, everything was. I was like, whoa. And I remember the chief instructor looking at me going, yeah, and then that was it. So I was laid flat, taken up. This is when the Naval Hospital was still HMAS Penguin. So it was just up the hill from where this had occurred. That was really scary. So they weren't letting me sit up. They weren't letting me even go to the toilet. Spent weeks in a wheelchair. Had doctors out the yin yang telling me, oh, we don't even know if you're going to walk again, let alone dive again. Like, forget the diving thing. And it was just written off. And I felt as though I'd gotten so far into this career that I was
Because you were a practicing clearance diver at that point.
So this was with the course. So this was the clearance diving officer's course.
Right.
So this is when we do O2 and we're doing deep air. So we'd done some deep work on the Friday, and this is just through having all of these reports that have come of it now. Having gone through the deep air, finishing up on the Friday, moving on to O2 on the Monday, there was something physiologically that just didn't like it, which caused the bleeding and the disruption in the system. That was like, no, we're not happy with what's happening here. So that was scary. I thought my career was done. I thought I was done. Mum and Dad were on their first overseas holiday at the time. I was just living single in Sydney. I didn't want to ruin that for them, so I kind of spent this time in hospital on my own. I was like, do I ring my brother? Like, what do I do? Like, so that was really
confronting,
quite shocking. Yeah. So that was the first time I sort of had it hit home, like a punch in the face, actually, of just how dangerous an activity diving can be, even when you're being, like, with all of the precautions under the sun. And so that scared me. And so I had to spend some time after that sort of assessing whether or not I really did want to continue on with it. I was certainly leaving the door open for me to go and just complete that element of training and then crack on. But I did take a period of leave without pay after that, because medically I had to spend a period dry. I wasn't allowed to dive even if I wanted to.
Yeah, right.
And then even after that, it was the most over-the-top crawl, walk, run approach back to it. I think I spent my first dive on a set in a chamber, so we weren't actually wet. We were under pressure. But yeah, it took a long time, and I still returned to the water. And I remember coming out of one of the first or second dive back, and by the time I reached the surface, and we're only diving a few meters, I had blood like halfway up my mask as I came to the surface. Didn't have any repeat incidents after that. However, that was still one of those moments where I just went, oh, holy crap, like this, maybe this isn't for me.
When will there be a critical moment?
Maybe this isn't for me. So
yeah,
I mean, got to be thankful though for some very pragmatic underwater medical specialists who were involved in that care package. I think for many other individuals in many other parts of the world, they just would have put a black line through the name and said, do not return to diving. So that almost brought it undone before it had even really begun, sort of thing.
100%.
Yeah.
What did you feel were the physiological responses that were compromising those particular dives? Was it a sense of breathing? Was it the underwater elements?
Don't know.
We don't know.
We do know that every year there is an underwater medicine conference held, and usually an amazingly extravagant place around the world. I think the last one's in the Cook Islands, and we're in Tahiti next year. But I bumped into one of the doctors coincidentally on a flight many years later, and he said, you know, your case from 08 is still reported on every year. They use it as this just huge anomaly around closed circuit O2 diving and what you guys were actually doing at the time, and so it's still I mean, it's chalked up on my medical file, which comes in volumes, as a medical anomaly, but safe to return to diving. And we had a number of different doctors have to be on site with me for a number of dives before I was actually cleared to be free and go and do it on my own again.
Yeah, sort of things. Right. But you know what? How comforting that the right care and the right professionals were keeping you at bay and giving you a transition process back into diving world, as opposed to giving that red mark saying you're totally inactive.
Totally.
What a great thing that happened for you.
That was great.
And what was the experience like with time without pay? How did you navigate, saying, right, okay, I've got some time without pay now. What was Curl up to at that point?
I had a girlfriend at the time living in the United States, so I took off to America for a while. I was teaching little kids to swim. I was working at a music venue, and just ultimately I wanted to come back. I wanted to return to diving, and so I had a good relationship with the officer in charge and some of the instructors. And I said, look, if you guys are happy to support a return, I'd be keen to put in the paperwork to say, cut this leave short and bring it back. And so I ended up returning after about 8 months. It was originally meant to be a year. And then went back on and finished what I needed to do without incident, thankfully. And here we are.
Life went on, but cracked on. And we had some time. We caught up in America, which was great. But by the time, I'm just trying to draw the timeline because I've known you since 2006, 07, and we started chatting about the Navy Diver brand coming into fruition, which was around 2009 and 10.
That's right.
So you had come back from America at what point?
August 09. August 09 I would have come back.
That's right. Yeah. And then by 2010 we were in the throes of running the brand because I had you back in the country. Yeah. So lucky for me. But I mean, it's great that you had that chapter of, decompression in a way. Being able to go to America, being able to decompress, find out what was important to you. Did you have any moments where things did become a little bit more real or define themselves in that time off?
I think it definitely allowed me to process it all. Like, I obviously needed to be physically fit to return to that training, knowing what it entailed. But more importantly, I needed to be mentally fit to return to that and for knowing what it entailed. I think it did scare the life out of me, not knowing what was going on. The testing was extensive and they thought it could have been all sorts of things linked to my brain. Like, it was a worrying time, and not having answers is sort of anxiety provoking in anyone. And so it was tough. And to still not really have anything clearly definitive at the end of that, other than we'd be happy to do a trial if you are, was, I had to put a lot of trust in the system and the people surrounding me, to which I did and still do to this day. I'm still in touch with quite a few of those medical professionals from then. Certainly a character building part of my life.
Absolutely. And then here comes Mick from Navy Diver saying, okay, 2010 comes along and then we're starting to work together and get Brian Kelly, Paul De Gelder and a couple of the other lads in the brand. But that was a cool moment. But like you said, I think having the right people that backed you up and believed in you and were able to not let your career completely step in a whole different direction, but a little bit of maybe a stop start, a little bit of a pause, and then get you back on the trajectory. I think, how blessed to be in that position. Okay, now moving forward from that, tell us about did you go on any other war tours?
So the first big deployment was obviously following 9/11, where we spent time in the Gulf after what had happened there, and as part of the Australian response and commitment to that task force. I then went to the Defence Force Academy for the following 3 years, and then the officer stream being what it is, spent numerous years after that in that training pipeline, so back driving ships, learning navigation, life at sea, and all the diving specialisation stuff. So I did a little bit of time at Clearance Diving Team 1, and then also, well, that's when the Maritime Counter-Terrorism EOD thing came about as well, and that then led into command out of Darwin. So that was sort of at the back end of the Children Overboard stuff and the turnback policies, and there was some really contentious things occurring with what was transpiring in the waters of Northern Australia. So that was tough. That was a tough period as well. I didn't know what I was getting myself into there. I'd certainly heard a lot of stories, yeah, to be going up there to be in charge of one of the ships was a big undertaking.
And this would have been what timeline at this point?
So this would have been about 2013, 14, yeah.
So you were in full steam with the military career. You had taken command.
Yep.
You'd stepped up the ranks.
Yep.
And you felt like your career was running on the high at this point.
Yeah.
To a degree.
Yeah, I think so. It was moving well. I remember being disappointed to have been pulled from MCT EOD early. But you know, it was, no, there's a bigger plan. Like, we're going to do this, and we're going to get into command and whatever. So I just sort of had to trust the process to a degree. And so I went ahead and went up there and did our thing, and then we'll get into this shortly, but it was ultimately cut short too for another thing that then came about with Japan again. But I think that time up there, there's a particular part that I think if asked what was one of the most challenging memories of my career, it would be that first week up there. And so I had taken command of my crew now, and we're in a ship, and the first day, I remember the navigator, the young guy, he had enough. It had nothing to do with me. I just arrived, sort of thing. He was very apologetic and quite literally had a backpack over his shoulder. Came to me on the bridge and said, "I'm so sorry. I can't. I've got to go," sort of thing. So I lost my navigator on day one, which was really challenging because we were about to move into a workup to then go out to be, you know, contributing to the Australian effort up there, to what we were trying to achieve with the border protection stuff. And so that was a challenge. But then the bigger one came 2 days later on the Wednesday. A good friend of mine who was the commanding officer of the base up there, Coonawarra at the time, he rang me during an exercise. So we had sea training group on board. These are the guys who come on board to do your assessments to ensure that you are ticking all the boxes and you are indeed competent to go out there and achieve, you know, mission outcomes. The commanding officer of the base called me and he said, and he mentioned my friend, and he said he's been killed in a car accident. And this was my executive officer, Scott Jarman. And my immediate response was, "Is this part of the exercise?" And I asked him, "Is this part of the training? Like, are we doing, you know, like an autocad sort of thing? Like, is this part of what we're doing?" And he said, "No, mate, we need you to come up to the office," sort of thing. And so everything just sort of came crashing down. I sort of grabbed a friend who was in charge of the training group there. I said, "Something's happened. I've got to go and solve this." I put a pause on everything and I'll return. And hazy after that, like sort of dealing with this, processing this. I've got this brand new ship's company. We're trying to forge a bond as a team to go out and do a pretty tough task. And we've just lost our executive officer who'd been on board for 2 years. They loved Scotty. And I'm so dealing with this not only as a professional, as the CO who's lost my second in charge, but I've lost a mate in it too. We had done our designate course together, and we knew each other from other parts of the Navy. So that was just enormous.
So his car accident took place while he was on military time?
Yeah.
And okay.
So
so he's suffering from grief.
Yeah, so that was phenomenal. So that was the Wednesday of week one. And then Friday morning, I had a phone call from ADFIS, the Australian Defence Force Investigative Services in Canberra. And they said, "Oh, look, you've got an alleged drug ring on board, and one of your ship's company is supposedly covering up positive drug test results for them." And so in that time, I then had to pull together my grieving ship's company and say, "We've got to jump through these hoops now as well, because this is what the accusation is, and I'll go first and come with me. So we all then went through that. And I remember at the end of that day, on the Friday of the first week, I had a phone call from Bob Platt, he's in Canberra. He's a Tuesday. He's working I saw him just last week. He's working in recruiting and retention now. And he was COM-MHP, he was the captain of the MHP force. And he called me and he said, "Oh, Rhino, bit of a tough first week, mate." And I said, "Yeah, you could say that." And we had a great relationship, and he's been so supportive of me through my whole career, and still is. And he said, "Oh, look, as tough as it's been, just know that it can't get any worse. Like it's only up from here," sort of thing. And they were good words. Like I needed to hear them in that time and space. And so I took them on. I said, "All right, let's go into this weekend." And I made some decisions around what we'd do with the training order, and that was all just peripheral to everything else. The focus was now going to be Scotty's funeral and getting us over to Cairns so that we could put our mate to rest. And I went into the weekend not really sort of knowing what to do with myself, other than keep checking in on my ship's company. And so we spent some time together on the weekend as well. I think we went down to Mindle and had a bit of a get together with Scott's partner. And Monday morning came and I was like, right, it's a new week. The captain told me it can't get any worse. Then I get a phone call from Canberra, and it's this time you're telling me that one of my members of ship's company has just been done for fraud and he's got to face a DFM or a Defence Force Magistrate hearing in Canberra. And so I thought, far out. And I went back to like the designate course days where they prep you. Yeah, they prep you for all of this stuff, and you sit on these courses and you think, whoa, it'd be great to not ever have to open that manual. And I feel as though in my first 7 days, I'd gone to every single one of them on my desk in my cabin. So that was tough.
In the hot seat.
That was tough.
So then take the promotion and really feel the hot seat.
Yeah. So then turn that around and get us like unit and operationally ready to proceed to sea felt like a really good achievement for us as a team. I think every single one of those guys and girls on that ship, and we were on numerous ships in the end, we used to rotate the hulls. I would not hesitate to put my hand up to do anything with any of them ever again. Just incredible people, incredible human beings, extremely competent operators. But certainly they were with me through one of the biggest challenges of my career. And it was that first week in command. And they tell you, oh, don't change anything for 90 days. And that's business wide. Like they tell you that in corporate world, don't go into a new role and change anything. And I didn't have 90 minutes before I needed to make some changes. And so it's good advice, but it's not always applicable.
I know. Once the circus starts to play out, and you're dealing with the spinning balls at hand, you're right. The task can change quite quickly. Yeah. And you talk about really solid individuals that were around you. What did make them an ideal team member or a good leader?
I think resilience, and we're throwing this term around a lot at the moment, but it does speak worlds to an individual's character. If you've got the ability to firstly assess and appraise what is defined as an issue or a challenge or a problem, and then solutionize what we can do moving forward for not only that person, but as a team, as a small unit, whatever it needs to be to achieve an end state. I just think resilience is so important. And just having trust in your people. There are so many people from that ship's company who knew and know so much more about they were subject matter experts for their part of ship. The engineer, phenomenal, unbelievable, one of the best I've ever worked with. Mick O'Donnell, if he's out there, just an absolute legend of a human. And I just relied on him. I depended on him. Like I trusted his advice. I didn't question it. I didn't need to. That's important because it's got to go both ways. I mean, you can't just say I want a leader that I can trust. Well, the leader's also got to have someone that they can trust, because you can't just be tasked off. Well, you don't want to then be tasked off if you're taking a direction from someone, and then knowing that in 10 minutes' time you're gonna have someone over your shoulder going, "How you doing? Are you going to do it this way?" It's just like, That sort of stuff infuriates me.
Absolutely. What's micromanagement?
It's at its worst.
And you feel underwhelmed. You feel like your skill set's not
valued.
And it creates doubt and anxieties.
Yeah.
But I think when you have a mentor that leans in on you, they become a confidant.
Yeah.
Because like you said, the power equation disappears.
Yeah.
It's like, I am above you, but we're going to be confidants to each other.
100%.
And that's where magic happens.
Yeah.
And you can perform at your best. They can perform at their best. No, well said. And I think a lot to contend with at that point in your career, no doubt. I guess, what were 3 key attitudes you've personally encountered that you immediately liked in people?
Yeah, great question. I mean, those 2 that I've just mentioned, so trust and resilience, are key attributes in people. And then I think there's something that I value is that human element that I think should be missing. Like you can have strong leaders, but you can also have people in positions of power that can be all but socially inept. The ability to read the room, I think, is key. There's not many sort of people that stand out that I've sort of been involved with over the years that haven't sort of been in stronger positions, who haven't been able to do that. But it's certainly easy to pick up on if that is the case with someone, and I think you can lose credibility quite quickly if there's this inability to actually gauge what's going on. And that can be as easy as reading people's faces and like, how are you being received and responded to, and what sort of engagement and involvement are you getting from your people, and what is it that we're trying to achieve.
I know, are we working as a team, as a unit, or is old mate secretly doing creating his own agenda? And that's something that's so important in military world, because you know, being a head everywhere, sorry, not just military world. Well said. It's applicable to any structure. I mean,
say hi to a stranger. What's wrong with that? And it's sort of bringing a human element back to what has become such a chaotic and busy world. And I mean, we live in Port Macquarie, it's absolutely lovely, but you visit any of the metro areas anywhere, and you really do see that rushed lifestyle. And I start to question quality of life when people are driven by timelines, not engaging with anyone, and its own agenda. So I mean, it might sound so simple, but make a change.
Absolutely. One author that I absolutely love is Michael Singer, and if you ever have the opportunity to read his book, The Untethered Soul, Michael goes on to say, to attain true inner freedom, you must be able to objectively watch your problems instead of being lost in them. Once you've made the commitment to free yourself of the scared person inside, you will notice there is a clear decision point at which your growth takes place. You need to watch your problems objectively and then make a commitment to free yourself from them. Like you were saying, I mean, there was an inner drug syndicate going on at one point. Allegedly.
Yeah.
So tell me,
the last thing in the world we needed. Another thing to then go and...
So tell me, was someone protecting someone's drug use in the military?
That was the allegation.
Okay. That's all I caught on when you quickly said it. Okay. And that can be that's a slippery slope, I'm sure.
Oh, as an isolated incident, that's a slippery slope. It was just compounding some very, very challenging moments for a lot of us.
And what was the consequence of that investigation, if you don't mind me asking?
I think there was 1 or 2 caught up with, confirmed, like positive use and whatnot. And I mean, there's a zero tolerance policy with that within ADF. So
absolutely.
So
and did any of those members lose their careers?
Oh, the bouncy ball then just takes over, and so if you're found to have a positive drug test result, you are then given a notice to show cause for why you should be retained in the military, and blah blah blah. There's a whole heap of admin that then goes with that, and that's it. Your
integrity gets questioned.
And I think the zero tolerance policy has been quite effective. It's not to say that we still don't see positive PSDP results come back. Sure. We're a microclimate of society as well, aren't we? So we're seeing that. We're seeing drug use around the world, and that's one of those things.
part of the job for you at that point in time. Okay, we've covered quite a bit of ground. All right, so we've covered Japan. Let's dial things up. 2017 and 18. What was happening at that point in your military life? Because we caught up in Japan in 16.
That's right.
And you were in the throes of representing the Australian military in an overseas capacity in Japan. You came back in 17. How were you? Let's humanise this for a moment. How were you balancing being? I mean, I've been told that you're the golden balls of the military by many mates of mine, many mates of ours. How on earth were you balancing all that pressure with your personal life?
It's an excellent question. I don't know. I think I got to a point. I definitely got to a point where there was just so much happening, and the pace of everything was so quick that it was perhaps an almost sink or swim sort of moment. And I mean, ultimately, this led to a bit of my demise later on, which we will get into. I got extremely good at convincing people that I'm totally fine, medically, professionally, you name it. And I mean, that was the beginning of the end for me later on. But I think in the heat of it all back then, still I was so motivated to seek that next promotion and seek that next posting that I really wanted to be involved in, or be involved with that and get engaged with these organisations. And I was just doing whatever it took. Sacrificing sleep was probably one of those mechanisms that facilitated being able to achieve that stuff. Had I not done that, it's impossible. I mean, we all say there should be more hours in a day. I certainly felt like I was a dog drinking from a fire hydrant at times, trying to maintain that phase.
What hours were you doing in a day?
Oh, in Japan, or
what was the height? What was the most compromising? Not compromising. What was the most hectic schedule in your military career where you thought, "Wow, I've got no time"?
Weeks, months of up at 5, if not just before, and still being awake and working after midnight. No problem.
You become a workaholic.
You do become a workaholic, and it's problematic. It's problematic. It's hugely problematic. I cursed it. We introduced the work iPhone many years ago now, and all of a sudden we had a device in our hand in addition to our own mobile phone that gave us access to our restricted emails. Didn't have to be in front of a terminal anymore. So I would often find myself going to bed, if I was getting to bed at 10:30 or 11 or whatever it would be in an apartment in North Sydney, and I'd check my iPhone, my work iPhone, and would be responding to emails at that time of night. And it became a bit of a thing. It was like, oh, you got an email, you respond to it, and that then sort of drove this instantaneous response, or this, you sort of felt obligated to, okay, someone's sent me that at 9:33 p.m, so I've got to get back to them now.
But you're always mentally
on. And controlling you around the clock. Very, very tough. And so I remember the day I handed that back in when I did change jobs was a good day. It's a dangerous thing. And I think we've started to get a bit better with that. I did notice before I left, there were some signature blocks getting around saying, please note, my working hours are bang to bang, Monday to Friday.
And they're setting the tone.
Yes. If outside of these hours, I'll respond to your email when I return to my workstation the subsequent day, or whatever it might be. And I thought that's a really good way of saying, you know, I'm not around the clock.
Or you're setting boundaries.
Because that just takes over lives. It takes over family time.
Absolutely.
And kids coming along, and priorities change for people.
Because you're a full-blown dad at this point. You've had 2 kids, and you're still at the top of your game. What cracks started to appear?
I think so. If we can just 2017, it was actually when I had I had some really bad bouts of illness, and this is probably the start of it. susceptibility to infection, recurrent pneumonia. I was getting really sick, really run down, and really quickly. I was in hospital 3 times in the space of 9 months in 2017. Each time with bilateral pneumonia, just awful, and run down, and the recovery period was lengthy, and I would never get to a fully recovered state before falling ill again with the same illness. That was tough. That was the start of my body going, hey, what are we doing? The hours were big, the days were huge. I had an exposure to a toxic substance in the workplace, which certainly didn't help.
Possible burnout?
I would almost say certainly, yes. So that was really hard for me, and so I had to take a period of leave after the 3rd hospital stay, and it's for quite some time. It was to really sort of decompress, get myself back to a state of health, and then doing like a few hours each day, building up to gradually a full work week again. So that was 2017, and that would have been the start of by the end of 2017. Now I sort of, and again, I've got really good at convincing people I'm just fine. I returned to a really good job, really interesting job with the task group in Sydney, working for a very, very good friend of mine. And it was a great gig. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be there for the organisation. I wanted to be there for my mate as his sidekick. Like, there was a whole heap of stuff that drove me to want to be back in action. And then in May 2019, as a part of that job, I was in the Solomon Islands doing a reconnaissance trip for Operator Safe. Every couple of years, we deal with the unexploded remnants of war in parts of the Southwest Pacific and up into Solis, and we were in a
Solomon Islands,
yeah, we're in a northwestern province up in Gizo, very remote, dealing with, we had a lot of like 81mm mortars and stuff that we found this one particular day, but then we got closed in on with just insane weather. Bad weather patterns, so much so that I pulled out the sat phone and called back saying, what do you recommend we do here? Like, we could probably cut this here and err on the side of caution, but we'd probably then have to justify a return trip up. And you know, the advice was, your boots on the ground, just make the call. And so we had a huddle, cracked on. I then had a fall in the torrential rain from a height not too much greater than the height of the ceiling, so not a huge height. An abrupt halt at the bottom, big boulder, electric shock from left ankle to right shoulder.
Oh no.
Changed the trajectory of my entire life.
On the ship?
We're ashore.
Sorry, you're ashore at the special. Yeah, yeah.
So not on a ship at all. We'd flown in, but nothing to do with
working on land in this province you're talking about. Yeah.
And changed my life. Yeah. So couldn't go to the bathroom that night, couldn't stand up. They got me back to the boat, got me to the hotel, but as you can imagine, the facilities in Gizo aren't too extensive, and so had to get me back to Australia, got me back here. Navy then got me into the hands of, by reputation, the most conservative with the knife in terms of the neurospinal surgeons who we were dealing with. He had all of my scans open. He says, I don't know how you've walked in here. Yeah. A grade 2 fracture at L5 with a 10mm displacement forward, impinging every nerve root through my pelvis. He said to me, I need to fuse this. I need to do it last week. To which I said, can I get a second opinion? So I went and saw another guy, and in copious amounts of pain, like throughout all this, like my legs just on fire, not sleeping at all. Like, the discomfort was next level. And
let's be honest, you knew in your heart of hearts that something was really wrong.
Something bad happened. Something bad happened as soon as I came to a halt. I was like, oh, that's not good. That didn't feel right. But you know. It was so quick and so sudden. And the second guy told me the same thing. You know, need to fuse, need to do it multiple level. You know, things will change for you. You may never sort of hyperextend anymore. And I love to surf. So I couldn't surf. I couldn't. All of these things I couldn't do all of a sudden.
And now you
couldn't pick up the other one and put him in the baby seat in the car. But all of these things that I should have just been able to do, couldn't do.
Start to get compromised.
So that then took me to a third neurospinal who I'm still with to this day. He's absolutely awesome, very pragmatic. We sort of use language like accept inevitability in terms of a very invasive multiple level fusion operation. He's going to open me up, pull my guts out, and fuse me from L2, L3 down to S1, and then repack me, flip me over, and connect it all up.
And this is yet to happen.
This is yet to happen.
Okay,
so
this is the next step in the right direction.
Next step. So ultimately, we just have to accept that there needs to be intervention to rectify the mechanical dysfunction.
Okay.
My best days, I have pins and needles in my feet. My worst days, Brandy has to help me shower.
Yeah.
You've got a full spectrum of pain. There's no guarantee on the surgical intervention. It's still only at about a 50-50 shot. So unsuccessful could look like anything from no change to potentially worse off. All of the specialists that I've been with have said that they've got patients with this slip to a lesser degree at the same level who are either bedbound or in a chair. So I'm grateful for the fact that I'm actually quite ambulant on my good days. So that was when things were really starting to get tough for me. But convinced everyone that I was okay, I could crack on, and I still moved into the role of the officer in charge at the diving school with a broken back. That role was awesome, rewarding, hard, incredible people, did some cool things. You know, we graduated our first female clearance divers. Like we were doing new things, and we were changing the way we were training. We were introducing this humanistic approach to how we deliver what's essentially tough training, hard training, but doing it in the right way, as necessary, as required, to still deliver a 5-star product at the end of the process.
And let's be honest, I think the clearance diving world, it's a man's world.
No, not anymore.
No, it was.
Yeah, it was perhaps. Yeah,
to a degree.
Yeah.
And I think to have those strategies and that change take place where women are able to, be a clearance diver, I mean, that's phenomenal.
It was tough going. We, in terms of the cultural change required, it was tough going.
Sure.
You've always got, the forward thinkers, the forward leaners, the people who are like, yep, we get it, like this is where we're going, this is what we need to do, this is how we need to change and evolve, and that's fantastic. And thankfully, that was the majority of our people. But like change anywhere, with anything, in any context, you've got the naysayers and you've got, the dinosaurs, oh no, we don't need to change them. But anyway, you deal with that as a peripheral thing, and you move forward with what's right. So that was really rewarding for me to sort of say when I looked back on it, said what did we achieve there, and we made some big changes to training. We introduced these really interesting things that we got great purchase from our staff with, particularly in like the humanistic approach to delivering this type of training, very unique type of training. And it got me to February 2020, and I was about to board a flight to Canada to observe some clearance diving selection training over in there with the Canadian Navy. And my boss had come over into my office at Penguin. We had a chat about all things training and people and staff and this and that and the other. And then he closed my door and he said, "How are you?" And I broke down, lost it. Yeah. I was like, I'm not good. I keep telling everyone I'm fine. I'm not fine. Yeah. And so he put a stop on everything immediately. Yeah. He's like, "You're not going to Canada tonight. We're going to get on top of this." And so I was back with neurosurgeon the day after, and then things kind of were tough for a while because there was so much that I'd let go for so long without addressing or fixing or just sort of pretending that it'll be all right, it's just a niggle, it's that or whatever. I'd actually made my situation worse. I'd exacerbated the slip. I had done all sorts of things to my body that I just should not have done.
So kept soldiering on.
Kept pushing on. How
much time transpired between the back injury and you working?
Might have been a couple of months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so not...
and we talk about resilience and soldiering on, and you kept...
So not long.
Yeah.
Not long.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I got cut short out of that, and eventually with the focus on all things spine for me, I handed over the role of the diving school to another fellow, and my direction then was to focus on me for the first time in 20 years.
Yeah.
Focus on your health, let's get things better.
Yeah.
And so I eventually moved into a remote based job, and this is when COVID was kind of still getting weird with the world and things were shifting and people were working from home anyway. So there were these models in place that we knew could be implemented or enacted to facilitate some kind of return to work for me. And we tried and tested a whole heap, and we found a solution, which was really rewarding. And so I was juggling 9 specialists at the peak of it all in every week.
Wow.
I still juggle about 4 or 5. But I had returned to work, and I was in this Canberra-based job in future workforce planning. It was exciting stuff, and they were leveraging off my expertise over 2 decades. And it was enabling me to value add and still contribute despite everything that had happened to me. And I got really sick again in, what are we, 2023. So last June, I got very, very sick again, and it was pneumonia. It was back. It was, we knew it was recurrent at least once a year sort of thing, and just kept coming back to haunt me. Bilateral case, I had a lung collapse, back in hospital. And we had just moved into this home, our brand new home. And that was hard, because I think it was the day we moved in, was the day I went to hospital. Handy. So thankfully Mum and Dad, they're in the house I grew up in, so they were helping Brandy. We had neighbours and friends helping us whilst I was hospitalised during the entire move-in process. That was hard going. It took me a long time to recover from that bout. It then led to a really strange incident one morning here at home, where Brandy was in this office working, and she heard a loud thump, and it was me unconscious on the kitchen floor. Now, I'd never passed out in my life, I'd never fainted. This was totally new to me.
Yeah, right.
And I remember thinking, when I was coming to, thinking, I feel like I'm going to wet my pants, I think I'm going to wet myself. Like having a dream, you wake up, I just need to go to the toilet, and I opened my eyes and I was like, I'm on the kitchen floor. What the hell has happened?
Yeah, wow.
So that was the first of this loss of consciousness stuff, which started to become a bit of a thing. And this is when it got really, really hard for me. And again, I was revisiting all of this. What's going on? I don't have an understanding, and therefore I don't have answers. And so
what's happening
causing anxiety and a whole heap of issues with me. And I mean, thankfully, Brandy's a nurse practitioner in geriatric psychiatry. She's a very highly qualified medical specialist. But still not to say tough when it's your partner. So went through the summer period not having the greatest time. Summer's usually really good for me with the neuropathic pain from the spinal injury. But I wasn't having a great time. I was still experiencing a lot of nerve pain, very uncomfortable of a night.
And this was last summer?
This is last summer.
Yeah.
Moved into January, and it was Australia Day, and this was another pivotal day in all of this for me. It was Brandy's citizenship ceremony. So she's been here for 18 years now. So we've finally jumped through that hoop. So it's really cool. I was like, I'm not missing it for the world, sort of thing. So I got there. I knew I wasn't too well. I just had a surgical intervention in Sydney, where they had done a 4-probe electrotherapy thing around where the damage is in the spine.
And that helped?
I was like the 1 in 10,000 that was worse off. So
okay.
Not good. So I came back to Port the next day, got off the plane. Brandy saw me at the airport, took one look at me and just went, what's happened? Far out. So home, rest, recover. Pain was through the roof. Had not responded well at all. But didn't want to miss the ceremony on Australia Day.
Yeah, sure.
So I pushed myself, got out. We did the ceremony and came back to the house, and I was like, I've just got to lay down. Like, I've just got to let this settle, sort of thing. Toast, yeah. Absolutely. And the kids weren't here. The kids were away. So it was just Brandy and I. And I was like, can we just call it early? Like, let's go to bed early. I'll grab an ice pack. She's like, yep, I'll go. We've got a spinal bed and we put it into different positions. So Brandy was going to go and prep the bed in with the position that I need to hopefully buy me some comfort. I grabbed an ice pack from the freezer, and that's probably the last thing I remember. I got 3/4 of the way up the stairs. It's like someone switched me off. Collapsed all the way down towards the bottom of the stairs, came to a halt with my
fell down the stairs?
Yeah, so really bad. I'd hit everything on the way down, and ended up sort of with a timber stair, really awkwardly with a timber stair sort of compressing into my diaphragm essentially. So laboured shallow breathing, all the things, non-responsive. Brandy's on the phone to the ambulance, and at some point in the assessment, she said, Brandy, you need to commence compressions. So like this was like this, and I mean, as I said, she's highly qualified, but when it's your partner, you're being told to start pumping the chest, it was huge. And I mean, for me, I'm unaware. I don't know what's happening here. The first thing I sort of recall was what I remember to be about 6 paramedics running through the door, and we later learned that there were 3 ambulances in the driveway, because as this was unfolding, they were like, this is not a good scene, get to this location. And as I came to, I remember the pain, not only sort of from the fracture down, but all over my body. It felt like someone was cutting me in half. In the ambulance, they gave me morphine, and then they tried fentanyl, no response. I was just obliterated by this level of pain. When we got to ED...
Hold on, fentanyl didn't take the pain away.
I was cooked. I was cooked.
My goodness.
There was no position that was comfortable. I couldn't do anything. I certainly couldn't move my legs without my whole, like the band around my belly, just as though someone was... The only way I could describe it was like someone was sawing me in half.
Wow.
Wow. So incredible nervous response to a fall on top of a recent surgical intervention. And then we spent that whole night in hospital awake, trying to get on top of pain with different approaches, different assessments, different scans. We wanted to know if things had been exacerbated, where the damage already was. Obviously a very comprehensive medical history, to which Brandy is brilliant at reciting now, unfortunately. And a good friend of ours was the ED FACEM on that night as well. And so she called in the acute pain specialist team with the head anaesthetist too, and they said, look, we're going to put him on a ketamine infusion. And I spent the next 16 days wired up to this experience, but curbed the pain. I got on to, probably by mid-morning, I was able to sort of openly converse again, but still fragile, very fragile. So that's all unfolding. We're getting on top of the pain. The break wasn't any worse. Everything was okay. We knew where the damage was. We knew where the disc issues were. Nothing was any worse. I was just
thank goodness,
in a hell of a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Having me wired up to everything though.
So didn't break anything down on the way down the stairs?
No,
luckily.
No, I had a good lump on my head and a black eye.
Okay, few bruises. But nothing that would cause chaos anywhere else.
No.
Other than the chaos that was going on.
Yeah. And so having been wired up to everything throughout this ordeal, they noted that my heart rate was really low, and they'd identified with the loss of consciousness episode, that's kind of happening on the side there too. They had said initially, look, we think this is what we call symptomatic sinus bradycardia. Your heart rate gets really low, your body goes, whoa, and just turns off. So that was an interesting thing that we were now watching closely too, which then led to the following day, they implanted a cardiac loop monitor into my chest just to monitor what was going on. And I'm not talking low, like, you know, a fit athlete sits in the low 40s. This was in the 20s.
Wow.
So like, and you know, I'm still told, it can be a concern. Sometimes in like extremely fit people, it's not really of concern. So there are differing opinions on it. But anyway, it was something that we acknowledged that we needed to at least be monitoring. And so this will inform us if at any point in the future we do need to go down the path of a pacemaker. So I now, sort of sitting back on it all, I was like, well, we've got a spinal injury, lung issues, heart thing, and now this neurological thing happening as well. The medical situation was so complex and challenging for me, we didn't even know where to start. I spent the next 3 months, near 3 months, in and out of, or in hospital. So between Port Base to John Hunter, I came back to the Port Private Hospital where I did some rehab. I haven't been able to drive since last December. They took my license off me as a result of the loss of consciousness episodes. A neurologist diagnosed me with a condition known as functional neurological disorder. Essentially, my body was getting to a point of capacity where it switches itself off.
Like a self-preservation safety switch.
Like a factory reset sort of thing.
Wow.
So, you know, some deep diving sort of revealed that the triggers around it, likely chronic pain, chronic illness, tick, and the cortisol response, to which we can all say yes. And so it's been hard. I was having episodes where I was unconscious up to 5 times a day. Now we've introduced some new meds since about March, April period, and I still have this occur maybe like every fortnight or so. There's no indicators, no warnings.
Yeah, right.
And I'll just collapse.
The neuropathic pain or the seizures?
The collapse,
yeah,
loss of consciousness.
Yeah,
so
wow.
That's still annoying and scary to a degree. I mean, there's so many limitations around what that means for me as an individual with any sort of independence. And it's all sort of tapped into those huge feelings of the loss of identity. My career came to an end on the 10th of August this year. I can't even go to the shop to get milk and bread. It's hard, and so to maintain like a family routine, getting the kids to school is something that we, do we leverage a favour off? We felt as though we were running out of favours quickly, because every day we needed something to help us get there. Brandy works crazy hours, and we just do our best to make sure life keeps moving. And the last thing we wanted to do was say to the kids, look, you're going to have to sacrifice that after school sport or something, because that's not what we had. Like we're going to do everything we can to ensure that they get to do it all. And so it's been and it's a bit of a new life and a new sort of way of doing things. We've got some great assistance and help in place now, and it's just been a journey. It's been a huge journey, and if we go back to the resilience piece that I value so highly, I like to think that some of the training, a lot of the training that I was subjected to with my career has helped me be where I am today, because it could have been so different. Too much time in hospital is not good for anyone, and it was certainly starting to drive me up the wall.
Mate, I've fallen apart. Lucky I'm not on camera. That is quite a journey of breaking and being broken.
Yeah.
I mean, to ultimate capacity. So, I really appreciate you sharing, and, I think it does go back to resilience. The fact that you're here today, and the fact that, you're getting on with it. You look great despite all the chaos that's going on. That smile's still coming out, and you've always been a trooper for as long as I've known you. And I even revealed to you that you get good at masking pain and hiding pain. And I think at the time that we were together in Japan, that was probably my breaking point in life, that I almost didn't come and see you in Japan because things were so chaotic. But I think it was the best medicine at that point. But I do know what you mean, putting the brave face. Not that I'm comparing anything of what you've gone through, but that must have been, this year's been absolutely challenging for you, no doubt. No doubt. But how wonderful for you to find that resilience, have a partner that validates you and believes, it helps you regulate, believes in you, and allows you to know that your pain matters and that it's real.
100%. Brandy has been instrumental in this recovery, and it's still ongoing. There's still I still have these days. Like, I'm actually starting to hurt a bit now, actually, but it's fine. Like, we've got a good hold on things, and when your support network's strong, then you're not alone. Like, it's a family effort, and the kids are so good. The amount of times that Kai's found me unconscious and rolls me over and puts me in a recovery position and calls Brandy, calm, collected. Yeah, it's happened to Dad again. He's
not a trooper.
Breathing, he's fine, and
not a trooper.
But then it's not really something that you would expect a 10-year-old to have to be able to stay on top of. So, we're sort of very cognizant of that as well, and we've spoken to the school and just said, look, there's some things that happen in our home that aren't regular. So if you could just keep an eye on the kids, and they've been awesome with that as well. So we've got some sort of support there for the kids in the school environment too, and
brilliant. They
just know it's the new normal. This is life, and it's on the whole, it's bloody awesome.
I hugs multiple times in your direction. I think knowing you for as long as I've known you, and I think you've been there seeing my journey unfold, but having the opportunity to reconnect, we get busy with life, but understanding the level of pain and everything that you've been through, it's such I just appreciate you sharing, and my thoughts and prayers are with you on your future recovery. On a lighter note, Invictus Games formed a healing chapter in your life, and let's flip the switch from all the pain and the torment. What was the catalyst for wanting to be a part of the Invictus Games for 2003, and how did that come about?
I think I had a phone call. So you should put an expression of interest in for this. You know, you fit the bill, you sit good in one of these categories, and give it a go. Nothing to lose, sort of thing. I thought, what a great thing to work towards. But then at the same time, also thinking, is it possible? Is it physically possible for me to do something like this? Nevertheless, gave it my best shot. Got selected into the Australian team. That was confirmed earlier in the year, and I was still in hospital. And so actually, I think I had my first set of Australia training kit delivered to my hospital bed in Port Macquarie. Which was kind of cool, because I'd go to physio wearing my Australia kit, and I really liked it, and sort of still made me feel connected to the team despite
the green and yellow tracking kit. Yeah, I've seen some photos. Looking very sharp.
So that was great. The whole team was so supportive of me and that phase of recovery, and just getting back to a point of not even competition at that stage. It was just participation. Is this possible? And I think we were only maybe 9 or 10 weeks out, still having the conversations around, is this feasible? Is this the right thing to do? Is this smart? Are we going to potentially exacerbate something here again? Did we go in the wrong direction?
I bet.
We didn't even know if I was going to be able to dive off an Olympic block. The hyperextension to a dive, potentially a very vulnerable movement for me. And it was a short course pool, so 25-metre pool, a lot of turns, particularly in 100-metre freestyle, for example. How was I going to go with a tumble turn at pace in the heat of the moment? It could have been really bad, and so we just had to. And I've got so many good specialists in my treating care safety net here in Port. Nath Lynch out at Warhope has just been phenomenal with me, and he's got me back to a point where, not only could we ultimately dive off the block, but we came away with some results, and it was such a special moment, mate. And it was never about the medals. It wasn't about that at all. It was getting on the plane. Granny and the kids, and my parents came as well. It was just something else, and such a polished product. It was really, really special. And I think it's just forged these lifelong memories in every single one of us. It's been such another huge pivotal turning point for us in this path of recovery. And I can't speak highly enough about it. Yeah, such a good experience.
Seeing, I think, the media coverage unfold, and even being with one of your mates, Barnesy in Perth, and trying to find a way to connect with you, almost left it a little bit too late. But I bit the bullet, and I thought, no, let's check in on him and see how he's feeling. And 4 gold medals, 1 silver medal. Talk about going from the worst pitfalls of being in despair and brokenness to being on the world stage and representing Australia. That's extraordinary.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
That's absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's the gravity of it probably hasn't even really sunk in, I don't think. It was all energy was focused on the experience, just have a good time, and be happy. And there was so much of that there. I think the opening ceremony was probably one of the most emotionally charged things, on a positive side, that I've experienced in a very, very, very long time. I think every single one of us, when we were waiting at the back, and because Australia was called out first, and there's 20,000 people in this arena and just all screaming and chanting. It's hard to describe what that emotion was like. Just looking around our team, everyone was just sort of having their own little moment with deep breaths, and it was so special. Yeah, it was really cool. Then to walk out on the stage was awesome.
Made in Prince Harry.
Yeah.
Tell us about that moment.
Yeah, it was. Harry and Meghan kept popping up everywhere. They were so generous and kind with their time.
Sure.
Meg was reading the kids a story one afternoon up in the family and friends area. They were presenting as many medals as they could, and they were seeing as many of the sports as possible too. They came to the swimming finals, and it was sort of everywhere you looked. They were either scoping an area for where they could come and spend some time, or they were there, or they had just left, kind of thing. And you know, fortunately, I was able to sort of have that one-on-one conversation with him and tell him, or say to him, that I think this is incredible. Like what this is doing, this is changing lives. And you know, I could have told him my story, but there was hundreds of other stories just like mine, with just their own intricacies and own backgrounds and elements, and just every single person there had a story. And so to be able to sort of share a moment with Harry, the patron of the games, was pretty cool. Actually, he's a good guy. He's taller than I thought, and he's just a genuine guy. It was really good.
That's unreal. Yeah. And what a great healing point for you.
Massive,
you know, because I think you really you find out what the human spirit is capable of when you're facing the most turbulent, you know, chapters in your life. And you're facing the reality of, am I ever going to be the same? Am I going to have the same ability? Can I, like you were saying before, can I pick my son up? Can I move my body the way I used to? That's traumatic thoughts.
Huge.
To think, am I able to do this again? And I would,
I think we'll start to see a bit of growth, more growth now in the adaptive sports area. I think, you know, for people who have been wounded, injured or ill as a result of military service, you end up in this grey area where, say you wanted to go along and play in just a regular soccer comp on the weekend and play a match, but you couldn't because you're unable to, but then that person may not be disabled enough to then qualify for, say, a Paralympic type venture. And so you're in this middle grey zone where it's like, well, where do we fit in? And so Invictus and the adaptive sports movement are trying to provide that platform, and they're achieving it. They're kicking goals in doing so. In providing that stage to say to people that, hey, it doesn't matter where you're at, what you're doing. Like this is a place for you to participate. This is a place for you to feel as though you are able to still achieve goals.
This is where wounded soldiers can come together and be broken. And if we're going to hurt, we're going to hurt together.
Yeah, and it's not
what
about
a powerful
medals,
mantra.
Not about winning. It's just about being with the people.
Unbelievable.
I think at the closing ceremony, Harry said in his speech, he said to us all, he said, we may have provided the platform, but you've provided the magic. And it was so true. Like there were so many moments every single day. You'd hear a story, or you'd just miss something. You'd just see something there, and then scoot over to that court and see. You know, the wheelchair rugby was spectacular. There were so many things that stood out to us as spectators, as well as competitors. It's incredible, really good.
And your one of your comrades who was a wheelchair competitor was Andrew Tebbit, from memory. Yeah. So you had one of your buddies there with you, and a few of the other gems that have been on social, and you guys have been reigning that Australian flag proud. We talked about a moment in the swimming pool during your 100-metre sprint. Rehash that story for us, because I thought that was incredible.
I think, what was the question? What was my most memorable moment? And it was probably losing the gold medal to Charlie in the 100-metre freestyle, and it was that Invictus spirit thing, and it was why we were there, and it wasn't about the shiny thing on the neck at the end of it. It was about achieving stuff, and we knew that Charlie had had a rough run with a brain injury following a cycling accident. He'd always been a strong swimmer. I'd always wanted to break the minute for 100 freestyle, which I think is every swimmer's sort of little goal that they hold in their pocket until they do it, and then they move on to bigger and better things. But he certainly still held on to it, and I had been quietly holding on to it as well, and was fortunate enough to have achieved it in the heats in the morning. And he came up to me and he said, "Oh, I want you to push me in the final to try and do that." And he said, "Oh, don't get me wrong, I still want to beat you." And so we had a bit of a laugh and formed this great friendship in a very short period of time. And
the fire in the belly.
Went into the final, and I mean, hats off to Charlie. Like he was the better swimmer on the day, and he got me, and he certainly broke the minute. And there was this moment when we hit the wall, and we were 0.11 of a second apart. There's a big TV screen up above the blocks, and there was a camera right in Charlie's face, and he ripped his goggles and cap off, and he realised what he had done. And there was this like look between us. It was just like, "You did it," and he was like, "I did it." And
cool.
There's a beautiful photograph which I can share with you, and if you want to put it up somewhere, it's a Charlie over the lane rope in that moment. And
cool.
it captures so. I mean, the photograph it says a lot, but knowing the story behind it, I think really gives it some impact.
Well, that was that team private moment that you guys as athletes had together.
Yes.
So creating that race in your mind before the actual race is it's compelling in both of your spirits to say, well, we're competing against each other, but we love each other, and no matter what happens, happens.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great feat to be around, you know, individuals like that who are rooting you on. Yeah. And what an extraordinary experience.
Exceptional. Cannot speak highly enough about the experience.
And shout out, I think, you know, some of the other boys like Kurt Ludke, who follows our brand, such a good egg, and who's the other gentleman, Brad Mazzaferri. Yeah. Great guys, you know, sort of have connections through the brand. That all of you guys, well done. You know, I think it just shows, it goes back to what the human spirit's capable of, and despite trials and tribulations, you know, resilience, just the fighting spirit, and proud moment, a very proud moment. Now, so look, Invictus, I mean, we talk, mental health can often be the invisible injury. You know, the things we can't see and the things we don't understand scare us. And it's hard to be able to talk about something that perhaps a lot of people don't feel. How do we move towards a compassionate future that prioritises our not only our emotional but our mental well-being?
Yeah, great question. I think we're getting better at it slowly. Removing the stigma has got to be right up there around mental health, and you know, we've got a lot of good catchphrase slogans getting around with different movements at the moment. You know, it's okay to not be okay, or to not be, you know. We're sort of encouraging people to come forward early, put your hand up and ask for help. That is absolutely fine. There's some really good stuff happening with speaking to the male population and sort of breaking down these barriers and I guess preconceptions that are so largely false around, you know, the fake bravado in a male as like, oh, just brush it off, you're a man, like just wear it. And
suck it up, man up.
That's rubbish.
Yeah.
So I think encouraging everyone, regardless of who you are, where you're from, that it is totally fine to be vulnerable. Then if we can keep moving towards that, then surely we're going to see some sort of better results. But it's a hard thing to tackle at the moment. We've got so many new influences these days that are actually affecting our mental health. You know, there's so much to be said for things like social media, and you know, we're in a world of instantaneous reporting, and things can be said and typed really quickly and can't be undone. And so these are things that you and I didn't have to contend with when we were kids. And so I don't know what we need to do there, but it's certainly something that needs a focused effort, because the last thing you want in the world is for something like that to affect our younger generations, and particularly if it's our own children, and you don't want to hear another story like that. And I think there's just too much of it at the moment in the media.
100%. We talk about at the highest point of your career of having access to emails and responding at ridiculous times. I mean, social media has created the same, you know, non-work factor of being on in people's personal lives. And that on switch being on for too long is very detrimental. Trying to be on for a social realm or a social broadcast. It's I don't know that we're going to see the effects on human behaviour. We're seeing the effects.
We are.
Anxiety's gone through the roof. You know, it's there's a lot to be said. Social media in the right balance.
Keep those interpersonal relations strong. Like, stuff the screen, like put it away.
Absolutely. Forge some real, you know, time with your friends, with your family, and exactly right. You can miss human moments by being absorbed
massively
in the social realm.
The
Albanese government, I mean, the Australian government, the Australian Government of Defence has reported that 1,600 ADF members and veterans with service after 1985 have died by suicide between 1997 and 2020. This reveals an additional 327 deaths by suicide since the last report. What are your thoughts on our, veteran suicide epidemic, and with this becoming a national crisis, what thoughts would you like to share to any veterans struggling with their mental health or PTSD?
Huge. Be vulnerable. Put your hand up. Identify it early, and if you see someone that's struggling, reach in, check in. First and foremost, that's what we can do at an immediate level, at our level. And I can only hope, and I'm actively involved in speaking with the current Royal Commission into Veterans' Mental Health and Suicide. I can only hope that with the ever-expanding terms of reference and the end date for final submission continues to push right, that we get close to the bottom of what we're really needing to address and how we need to solutionise these issues and what we need to do to be helping people better. And then hopefully we do start to see a decline in those numbers, and wouldn't it be wonderful if that went to zero? Yeah, we need to see action. We don't want to see a final report that's just recommendations that aren't put into place. We want to see recommendations that come out of the final report, things put into place, changes taking effect, and then we want to see the results speak to that. That'd be the ideal end state.
Absolutely. And I think, everybody that's home right now that might be suffering, I'd like to say that it's so important to surround yourself with at least one person who validates you. And when I mean validates you, I mean someone that believes you, that cares about you and tells you that your pain matters and that it's real. And you got to be brave. It's brave to breathe. It's brave to keep going. You get frustrated, why am I not getting better? What's wrong with me? Something wrong with you, but there might be something that's not firing right. And that's something that you got to pay attention to. So to anyone that's struggling, put your hand up, reach out to veteran groups, Swiss8.org. Ryan, do you know any veteran groups that can aid in anxiety, depression, or PTSD?
Can I give you a whole list to put on at the end of this? And
absolutely.
Post it up. Yeah, to make personal mention of a number. Yeah,
done.
That'd be
done.
Yeah.
Okay, how did your service and experience affect and shape your life?
Oh.
We sort of talked about it in the whole conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly influenced who I am as an individual. As a professional, certainly. I mean, the experiences I had with my career, yeah, were pretty good on the whole. But like anything, like every job's got its good days and bad days, doesn't it? And yeah, I'm grateful for the experiences that I did have. I'm grateful for the friends that I made. I do think sometimes I find myself going, geez, I wish I could still be part of that, like evaluating or contributing to an organisation and a movement that I was so, and still am, so passionate about. I really see the necessity in what we were doing and why it was important, why it remains important in an evolving global environment with what's happening around the place. Like we just, yeah, I think we need to keep doing good. And a career within defence can really sort of provide a bit of a vessel to achieve something in that space, I think.
And have a greater purpose. Are there any adventures, business adventures or experience you've yet to conquer, and how will you go about putting them into action?
Not yet. It's all too new. It's all too new. There's a couple of ideas. I think just mental occupation's got to be my focus. I need to have something to keep me busy. I volunteer at the school. I teach ethics on a Tuesday morning, which is awesome. So facilitate discussion around making ethical decisions with little kids, which has been really rewarding. And I've also just become a Justice of the Peace. So I spend some time at the library signing things for people, which is giving a little bit back, which I'm enjoying as well. So.
And what a great opportunity to find out, or do things that you've not been able to do before.
Yeah.
I mean, sitting down here today and sharing your story, to a global audience of 80,000 fans that we've got across the world. Yeah. I mean, not to daunt you, but that's great, mate. It's finding a new piece in Ryan Kelly.
Yeah.
A new identity piece.
Yeah.
It was always there, just needed to come out in a different way.
Yeah. New path forward.
New path forward.
Here we go.
If you met your 18-year-old self face to face, what's one piece of advice you'd say to your younger self?
Just make good decisions. Read into that what you will.
Boy, have we all been there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what piece of advice or inspiration would you like to leave to our worldwide Navy dive fans?
Oh, stay positive. Be kind to yourself, and be kind to everyone else. And yeah, I'd probably go back to just saying it's okay to not be okay. If you don't even have to use the term struggling. If things are a bit tough, then reach out. You know, speak to family, speak to friends. Like, there are so many people in your life who undoubtedly care and they want to know how you're doing. So pick up the phone and just do it.
Absolutely. Mate, it's been extraordinary knowing you for as long as I've known you, and I want to thank you for your 22 years of military service and all the things you've had to contend with during your time in service, the resilience you've shown post very traumatic situations in your life. I once revealed this with your mum, Carrie, that I said, Ryan has this extraordinary way of making you feel like you're on the top of the world when you're in his company. And she concurred with me, and she said, that's exactly the way I describe my son. And I've always felt that, being a young guy who wanted to create a name for you guys as the inspiration for me, you will always just have a listening ear and always like, you go do that, I'll support you, and that's such an incredible thing to have in a friend. And I really want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
I think through our mental health issues and our traumas, we can become really expansive human beings that are heroic, brave and courageous. And yeah, I think you've just summed that up with your whole life story today. So thanks for your time today, mate.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Hi Ryan, hopefully this is a nice surprise for you. And for everybody else, my name is Charlie Charles and I'm in the United Kingdom. I'm a former Royal Marines Commando and served 21 years before getting medically discharged. I've served around the world in various conflicts and ended up riding home from work and ended up having a push bike versus car accident where I had a broken neck, a fractured skull and a bleed on the brain. Due to my accident, I heard about the Invictus Games and was lucky enough and fortunate enough to try and be a competitor for it, and then I was lucky enough to get selected to take part in the Invictus Games. It's been a long journey but thoroughly fantastic at the same time. So I was competing in the swimming event where I met you, and you was the first person at the Invictus Games to go under a minute for 100 freestyle, which was amazing achievement, and that was one of the achievements I really wanted to achieve, and set a goal to achieve it. When I seen the heats coming up prior to the final, I realised you'd already done that, and with it saying you was from Australia, I thought, well, I'm going to go and try and talk to this bloke. I'm going to try and find out who he is. And I looked at all the Australian competitors and I thought, I think that's him, and I introduced myself to you. Hi mate, is your name Kelly? And you said yes, and I said, hi, my name's Charlie Charles, and we started chatting, and I told you that I wanted to be able to go under a minute for 100 freestyle, so I'd do your deal. And the deal was, if you took me under a minute for 100 freestyle, I'd let you win. Kind of almost worked out like that, but I managed to pick you to the post, luckily. In that brief conversation, because I have talked about this to anybody who will listen, and from there we sat down, had a bit more of a chat. You told me what had happened to you and how quickly, since getting out of hospital to then turning it around and then competing, which was a very short space of time, and again a great achievement to be so fit and healthy after having such a serious things happen to you. If you remember, I said amazing, that's fantastic, and I genuinely still mean that. But I said the psychological, the competitive side in my head saying, thank goodness he hasn't been training for as long as I have been, because I got out of hospital a bit longer than you, so I'd had a bit more practice in trying to get physically fit for the Invictus Games. So I was beneficial there, and I was using the psychological of fun and not seriousness to have a bit of banter. And as most of us within the armed forces do, our sense of humour can be a little bit dark, so we didn't let that sort of get in the way of having a laugh at both of our expenses. One of the last things we initially talked about when we first met on the swimming pool side was I noticed that you still had a bit of a beard going on and looking rather smooth. I commented that I used to have a bit of a beard, but for the games and to try and achieve going under a minute, I wanted to give myself every chance possible. So I shaved the beard, I shaved under my armpits, shaved all my body hair, my legs, so then I could be as slick and as fast as possible. Who knew that that might actually pay dividend? And when we later then competed in the 100 metres freestyle, one, it was fantastic just to do it next to you and share that atmosphere with all them other competitors and all them other people in a glorious and fabulous location. But we knew it was going to be a challenge for both of us to try and come first. And as we were swimming along, boy, we were tired, and it came down to that last length, and I don't think anybody knew what had happened. And I remember the coach popping up inside my head saying, kick your feet, as I'm swimming along. And I thought, oh yeah, remember to do that. So I kicked my feet as fast as I could, and then I started to progress a little bit forwards as I think your fatigue was maybe getting in, and then I was lucky enough to beat you by 1/10 of a second. So we competed in lots of events that day, first and second, but again, it was the atmosphere of Invictus Games what was just brilliant and fantastic. I was lucky enough to come second in the 50 freestyle, 50 backstroke and the 50 breaststroke, and you was the man in all them other events, getting 3 golds and 1 silver on in the 100 freestyle. And then in the relay, again, Team Australia, fantastic, coming first in the relay. So a great privilege to be able to spend that with you. And then after all the races, the Team UK jumped in the swimming pool, we chucked all the coaches in, and then if you remember, we were shouting over to the Australia team, and your coach jumped in, you jumped in, and some of the other competitors from Australia jumped in, and it was a fantastic way of finishing off our day in the swimming pool and being competitive. So it's been really good to stay in touch with you, and I really applaud and thank you for sending me a message on my phone, and then us having that relationship and that contact starting out in Dusseldorf 2023. It was amazing, the pictures that you found of us swimming, and you got off the Australian team. Also, I couldn't believe some of the pictures that you managed to send me. You had a fantastic one with a good looking chap called H. That was amazing. And the closing ceremony was just an absolute blast with amazing memories, what will be treasured forever. So it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you, and I've taken away lots of things from the time that we've known each other, including the Invictus Games itself, and there's been lots of little stepping stones what have got me to where I am now, and the ability to be able to do this, and also have the courage to talk to you in the first place. You're an absolute gentleman. It's been amazing getting to know you, and long may that continue. I look forward to coming over to Australia, hopefully at some point in the future, and we can meet up and have another beer again sometime soon. Okay now, mate, very best of luck for your future and for all the family. Take care, and I will hopefully see you soon, mate. Have a good one.
Pick your mark.
We lost individual race of this program. Oh, 3 and 4. Ryan Gay. Silver and bronze. What a show the boys have put on for us today.
The medal ceremony for the Invictus Games Düsseldorf 2023 Men's ISE 100-meter freestyle. The winner of the bronze medal, representing Australia, Carl Woodward. And the winner of the silver medal, representing Australia, Ryan Kelly. the winner of the gold medal and Invictus Games champion, representing United Kingdom, Paul De Gelder. So once again, please show your appreciation for all your medalists.
You ready?
Aussies!
Welcome, Brandy.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
Really good, thanks.
So we've dedicated time to talk about Ryan's story today, but no one knows it better than the partner herself. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on Ryan's military career and his journey, and what it feels like to be Brandy, the partner.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's been a really interesting experience because Ryan's been so unwell for the past sort of year and a half, and seeing Ryan get medically discharged from the Navy was really hard for him. We both have great careers and very passionate about our jobs and our roles and our titles, and I think it was just really hard to see Ryan face losing that. But at the same time, it all was occurring whilst he was invited to the selection camp for the Invictus Games. So whilst he was dealing with a lot of health problems and a loss of identity, he had a really beautiful distraction in the Invictus Games and being a part of that organization, or I guess like they have an ethos and they really bring people together, and Ryan has always been such an athlete, so to get him to be able to focus on something that he already loved, but in a sort of, I guess, elevating it to the next level to compete in an international, like, global event was just, yeah, it was fantastic. So whilst there's been lots of hard stuff with Ryan's health, there's been lots of good stuff too.
And what a great healing chapter it was for Ryan to be a part of Invictus, for you to be there supporting each other. What is next for you two?
Well, Ryan just a couple days ago asked me to marry him.
Woo!
So it's been a really exciting week, and we obviously own a home together, and we've built this beautiful family, and taking the next step to become Ryan's wife will be really exciting. Ryan and I both love a party, so it's just going to be great to look forward to. We've got lots of trips planned, but ultimately Ryan and I just feel really lucky. We're living the life of our dreams, and he's my best friend, and I always tell people he's the brandiest man I've ever met, which is so funny. I never ever wanted to date with someone exactly like me, and he's not. We're very different in lots of ways. Mickey, you would have noticed Ryan's side of every room is a lot neater than mine, and so we have some yin and yang qualities to this relationship. But yeah, I just feel so lucky to be with Ryan, and we have so much fun together no matter what we do, and we just take lots of opportunities to have adventures and make memories. So what's next is a lot more of just an awesome life, I think.
Sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
What's a fact about Ryan Kelly that you can talk about that no one knows about?
He's the first guy at a party to get naked.
probably true.
But again, I'm not, but I love that because that's a Brandy thing to do. Not that I do that, but he's just so fun. Yeah, that's a good fact about Ryan. But also, he's probably the strongest, softest guy I've ever met, which is really lovely because he's this big, muscly man, as you would see, and yet he's just so calm and sensitive and kind and cares so much about me and our family and everybody, really. He's just got such a big heart, so I love that about Ryan.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you to the best chapter ahead, adventures in health, in love, and in your beautiful family unit together. Thanks for supporting this incredible man's story and the journey that he's, ongoing journey that continues. I think it's the team around you that uplift you and guide you to be the best person you can be. So I'm glad we could share this moment all together.
Yeah, thanks, Mickey.
Pleasure. Welcome, Kai and Ryan Kelly. We'll do the proper intros later. Kai, tell us a little bit about Dad being in the military. What inspired you about Dad serving in the Australian Navy?
Well, when we went to Japan, because he worked in the Australian embassy and worked with the Japanese military, we got to go to Japan and we got to live there for a whole year, so that was really exciting. And him being in the Navy is really cool, and then he also got to go to the Invictus Games because of that, and then we got to go to Germany, and that was a really good experience.
Invictus, Dad winning 5 gold medals. How good's that?
Yeah. I'm very proud of him. And just proud of him.
That's wonderful, mate. It's beautiful. Very good, very good. Any other memories that you want to share, or that's about it?
Well, I probably have more memories, but
yeah, what else comes to mind?
Well, he went on work trips by himself quite a lot, so he got me special things from those places.
Oh yeah, what did he get you?
Well, once he went to, like, where was it? It's the place where you broke your back. Solomon Islands. Yeah, and he got me this fish made out of, like, stone that they make from just the guy that was selling it. And yeah, and then he went on all different workshop trips, and he was gone for so long. And then he would get me heaps of things.
That's unreal.
Very cool.
Very cool. And why does Dad make you proud?
Because he's pretty busted, and he's still doing things that busted people shouldn't be able to do.
It's pretty inspiring.
Yeah, because he in the Invictus Games, he swam in the pool really, really fast, and I don't know how he did that with a broken back in FND. It just doesn't make sense, but he did.
Very inspiring, mate. And how does Dad inspire you in your chapter ahead?
Like, never give up, I guess.
How you going, team? Michael Barnes here, ex-sailor of 29.5 years, clearance diver of 26, almost 27 years. I thought I'd take a quick break from laying deck today and crack a beer and talk about my mate, Ryan Kelly. Ryan Kelly. To be honest, words can't really describe that individual. You can call him kind, intelligent, humble, charismatic, a fucking awesome leader. But until you sit down with the guy and you really really get to see him face to face and see him in action. It's really hard to, let words do him justice, but I'll try. So I had the pleasure of training Ryan back in his day on his MCDO course, and he was one of the most driven and motivated human beings I've seen come through that training continuum in many years. Thankfully, throughout his time as an MCDO, a clearance diving officer, I also had the opportunity to work for him, and that's when I really got to see him at his best. Ryan can dive, Ryan can shoot, Ryan can do demolitions, he can do explosive ordnance disposal, but what he can do is he can connect with a room, he can connect with individuals of any status, and it's truly incredible to watch him in his domain. Ryan has been there as a very strong confidant for myself. I've gone through my own issues through service, as you can imagine. After a long time in Navy diving, you do get some challenge thrown at you along the way, and Ryan was there for me probably at the worst stages of my career. And in conjunction with that, or in parallel with that, he was also going through significant hardships of his own. How that guy continued to serve the way he did and put one foot in front of the other the way he did is one of the most inspiring things I'll ever see, and I hope never to see it again, because I know where he was at, and I know as a human being what he was going through. But to see a man like that hit rock bottom and soldier on and still have capacity for everybody else, mate, they don't make them like you. You're a cut above the rest, and you really are the frogman's officer. My friend, I love you like a brother, and you inspire me every single day, mate. So all the best. I look forward to seeing this podcast of you. Mickey's been talking about it and talking it up, I should say, and mate, it better be fucking good, and it better be full of lies. Cheers, bro. Beautiful.
Just want to say how incredibly proud we all are of you. I know this chapter is going to be your best yet, and I can't wait to see what you do. Thanks for being a comrade for life. Thanks for the memories and plenty more to come. Love you, mate.
Hi, my name's Andrew. I'm an Army veteran of 15 years and an Invictus Games competitor. I competed last year in 2022 in The Hague, and this year in Dusseldorf. One of the best things that I brought away from the Invictus Games were the friendships. One of those friendships was Ryan Kelly. I met Ryan Kelly here in Port Macquarie. First of all, we did a come and try surf day for Invictus Australia that he was helping out with. And then I came across him again when we had selection for this year's Invictus Games. And all I can say is that I've rarely come across someone so genuine, so friendly, so generous, and like I'm truly blessed to have him as a friend, to call him a friend. He's, even when he was having his darkest times earlier, he was in hospital, he was dealing with his own issues. The first thing he would do when you talked was ask, how are you doing? I mean, how many people who was suffering like that he was and dealing with the issues he was dealing with would turn around and say, how are you doing, without even a thought for himself. I'm so blessed and happy to be able to call him a friend, and it's so fortunate that I'm able to live in the same town as he is and spend time around him and his beautiful family.
Hey Ryan, I just wanted to say it was an absolute pleasure to be able to share the Invictus journey with you, and I wish you all the very best for your next chapter.
Good morning, hitters and everyone else. Commando Cook here, just getting off the pans to send a quick shout out to the Navy diver team and Ryan Kelly. I met Ryan Kelly on the most recent Invictus Games as part of the Australian contingent of athletes held in Dusseldorf. I came to know Ryan as a stellar individual. Smile is permanently plastered on his face, and knowing a little bit about his story, it's amazing that he's able to smile at all. If you are interested, and I hope that you are, jump across to the Navy Diver podcast and you'll hear about Ryan's story from himself and the team there, and the Q&As that will no doubt follow. And could also be the first to, or one of the first to congratulate you, Ryan and Brandy, on your engagement, mate. So well done. See you later.
Ryan Kelly, mate, you're a champion. You got me involved in my underwear modelling career, but that's not the only good reason that I like you. Yeah, so when I wasn't being an underwear model and I was at the dive team serving with you, it was great being under your leadership. You're very professional, realistic, down to earth. Usually I think we finish all our tasks before anyone else, so mate, I'm pretty sure it came from your leadership, not us. But yeah, mate, just your positive outlook was fantastic, and it really shows to this day, especially when things are down, mate. You were able to pick us up, mate, and seeing how you picked yourself up with what's happened in your life, and watching you through Invictus Games, mate. You're an inspiration. I'm proud to be your friend and to have served with you, and I wish you all the best.
G'day guys, how's it going? My name's Dave. I've just been asked to give a quick shout out to our great friend Ryan Kelly. I've known Ryan for just shy of 20 years. I was in the Navy with him, and I've been fortunate enough to have served with him a couple of times. Look, we all know what a great guy he is, and I don't actually know anyone that dislikes the guy. We always used to joke that Kel was this perfect human carved out of his own special mineral named kelsenite into some kind of Greek god. But the guy, you know, not only is he a great person, he's also willing to share his successes with you. Whether it's the concerts he'd take you to or the introductions to the endless amount of celebrities that this guy knows. You know, it was just always great. But as we know, Kel's come across some hard times of late, but he always comes up golden. That is one of the traits that Ryan has, and he always seems to come up better than the situation he went in with. So when it does rain, it pours for our friend Kel, and if something's going to go wrong, it all seems to go wrong at once. But he does have this innate ability to bounce back better than ever. And all you've got to do is look at his, you know, recent accomplishments, whether it is in the Invictus Games where he absolutely smashed it there and, you know, got a whole bunch of, you know, golds for Australia in the pool. His new home and his new partner, Brandy, who he's just been engaged to, which is absolutely awesome, mate. Best decision you've made in a long time. You know, he's just such a great guy, and I'm really proud to know him. But one thing I want to share with him is he's such an arsey guy. He's the only guy I've ever known to catch a drumstick at a concert, not once, but twice, and at two separate occasions. And just when you're thinking with this bloke, oh man, this bloke's bloody unbelievable. He's smart. He's awesome at his job. He's a top guy. And for Christ's sake, he's even an underwear model. And just when you think he's just this sickly, perfect human, he'd turn towards you with that drumstick and go, oh man, I've got one of these. You should have it. And that's just the kind of guy Kel is. So, you know, I've got a million stories I could tell about Ryan, some funny ones, but I won't because I'm implicated in most of them and I still serve. So I'll share that with you over a beer. But mate, we love you. Keep doing what you do, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, guys.